Have you ever been in that place where you find the things that you own overwhelming? You just have too much. You know how you have too much, but you're really struggling to do anything about it. You know you should declutter some of those items, but something is holding you back from doing that. There's some kind of like emotional or physical resistance to getting rid of things that you realistically do not like or use, especially when it comes to makeup or clothing. Now, my channel is all about makeup products, so I'm going to be focusing specifically on makeup in today's video, but I think a lot of these points you could relate to other aspects of our consumer lives. I just spend the most time thinking about makeup because I have been on such a journey to curate down my existing makeup collection. This is a journey that started back in 2019, and since then I have gone on a number of makeup no buys, low buys, done a lot of projects like project pans, eyeshadow roulette, blush roulette to try to figure out which products in my collection I truly love and reach for and want to be using. So I do a lot of project panning on my channel, but I also do a lot of decluttering of products that no longer work for me. I think that makeup panning is the better route to go in terms of makeup usage. It's always going to be better to use up your own products rather than pass them on to someone else because you just don't know if that person is going to use them up. And if you're decluttering it, if it's a bit older, you might not feel comfortable passing it on to someone else. And some products, like, for example, this one, I probably could not pass this on to a friend because of the type of product that it is, or like a mascara, not going to pass that on to a friend. So I think generally panning is the way to go. But that being said, decluttering is another route to curate down your makeup collection, and it is another great avenue for that for the right products. That being said, it can be very challenging sometimes. There's a lot of makeup products in my collection still that I don't use that much, and I don't even necessarily enjoy using when I do use them, that I can't seem to give up for whatever reason it is. And I think it can be a variety of reasons. But in today's video, I'm going to talk about what I think are the biggest reasons that prevent me from decluttering those makeup products. And hopefully this can help you understand your own tendencies and be a bit more sympathetic with yourself when you have those challenges to declutter your collection. And I think it can also help us overcome those challenges when we actually understand what the issues are. So let's just get into it. So first and foremost, I think we need to understand the fact that though our makeup collection is physical, these are physical, tangible items that we own that are in our homes, so much about makeup is also mental. It's not just the physical. It's not as easy as, say, finding an apple that has gone bad in your fridge and throwing it out. We have an emotional connection to much of our makeup collection, and that makes it a lot more challenging to part with than things to which we have no emotional connection. I think a lot of products and items that we have in our homes are purely utilitarian. For example, when I think about the kitchen, I don't feel like I have a super emotional or intellectual attachment to the items in there. This goes beyond just like the food, right? Like pasta and oatmeal and apples or whatever. Even like our blender, like the bowls that we have for mixing, I don't think too much about those things. I'm not super attached to them. And if my partner decides that he wants to get rid of one of our pans and get a new pan, I'm not really going to have an issue with that because that's not super intellectual to me. That's not super emotional. I'm sure for some people, if you're really big into cooking or baking, maybe you have an emotional attachment to some of the things in your kitchen, but for me, not so much. And this also goes vice versa, right? Some people, makeup has a purely utilitarian use value. And so they have no emotional attachment to their products because they're just using it because they feel like they have to. They might swipe on a little lip gloss, a little brow gel, a little mascara, and they're good to go. And if their products get lost, they're not really fussed because they're just going to go out and buy something new. If they stop liking a product or if it goes bad, they'll just throw it out or pass it on to someone else and buy something else. However, for myself, and probably for most of you watching this, we have a more emotional attachment to those products. And if we lost them, if we were traveling and our suitcase disappeared and we lost all of our makeup products, or if our favorite lipstick suddenly expired, we would be upset because those products, we don't see them as purely utilitarian. Those things mean more to us. So I think we have to keep this in mind when it comes to the products in our makeup collection. Even if you don't super love a product, there might be some kind of emotional attachment there. For example, I have this Wet n Wild lipstick. I don't wear red lipstick a ton, so that is automatically one reason why it does not make sense to hang on to this. I have a few other red lipsticks. I've also never used this, so I could pass it on to someone else easily. I did not choose it myself, so I don't know if this is a good shade on me. It might be, it might not be. It's a pretty cheap lipstick, so it might not be a great formula. All of these are reasons that I shouldn't be holding on to it. However, this was given to me by a friend. Last year when Taylor Swift re-released 1989, my friend had a listening party with a few of us, and she gave us all these like little mini gift baskets that were like Taylor Swift 1989 themed, and one of the things was this red lipstick. And because of that, I think it was just such a nice gesture, and it's so cute, and I think of that whenever I see this product. So even though I've never used it, and I don't even think I would necessarily like this product, and I wouldn't pick it out for myself, I have a hard time getting rid of it. So we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace when it comes to makeup products, because that emotional or intellectual attachment really plays a factor there. It is hard for me to declutter that product despite not liking it, probably because of that emotion in place. Another reason that it is so hard to declutter our makeup collection is that products are expensive. Even if we had an eyeshadow palette that we do not like, we never reach for, we know that we spent money on that. Let's say it's a Natasha Denona palette. I don't even know how much those go for. I have never bought a Natasha Denona palette, so let me look it up right now. Oof, $100? Damn, that's a lot. I also live in Canada, so it is going to be more expensive here than in the US. But let's say you bought into all of the hype about Natasha Denona palettes. You finally bought yourself one after thinking about it for 2 years and comparing the palettes you own to that palette. You get it and you don't like it that much. 3 of the shades you quite like, but you could also function without them. You have other ones that are similar, and you know you should declutter it. You know that you might even be able to sell it on like Vinted or another platform and get some money for it, but in all likelihood you would just pass it on to a friend just for free. And so that feels to you like $100 down the drain, $100 wasted. And that's a lot of money. You could have done a lot of things with that money. And despite not loving that palette, and despite maybe having been able to declutter a similar palette that was a lot cheaper, because of the price tag of that palette, you simply cannot part ways with it. Again, this is a super valid feeling, and I think the same can be said for clothing. If we spend a lot of money on a piece of clothing and then we never wear it, we're still going to want to hang on to it because of the cost of that product. And I think we also feel like we can justify the cost of that product more if we own it for longer, because in that longer time scheme, like maybe we'll end up using it more. If I spent $100 on a palette that I only owned for 8 months, that feels like a complete waste. But if I hang on to it for 2.5 years, even if I don't use it any more than the number of times that I used it within those 8 months, it feels more like, okay, I've had this palette for a while and maybe I didn't love it, but at least I hung on to it. Of course, this doesn't really make any sense because despite having it for such a long time, you're not making use of it. But I think that is a way that we can trick ourselves into thinking that it was more worth the money, and therefore that makes it harder to declutter. And I think a lot of the times we have guilt over buying the product in the first place. I do, at least when I look at products that I bought quite a while ago. Like obviously the past couple of years, the products that I bought, I don't feel guilt over them because I have figured out how to buy products in a smart way and make sure I fully think through all of those purchases. But for sure, anything that I bought in like 2019 and before, for those products that I still have that are that old, I definitely feel guilt about, because so many of those products were not well thought through. They were spontaneous decisions, and a lot of them I didn't end up liking. But I somehow feel that like keeping it and using it can make up for that, and thereby like assuaging, is that how you say that word? That guilt. The guilt is lessened if I do actually use it, but even if I keep it in my collection and I don't use it, I still feel less guilty about that, I think, than if I just threw it out outright, because there's like, oh, I could one day use it, you know? That being said, like I think there's always going to be guilt. Even when I'm trying to use up this NYX lip liner, I have 2 of these in nearly identical shades. I didn't need to buy both, and I feel bad that I bought both, and so when I use it, I still do feel guilt for buying it, even though I'm like using it up. Because I'm forcing myself to use it up, that guilt is there. It's not organic usage. Also, I will say, when I was looking to see if other people have done similar videos to this, I like to do that if I have a video idea but I don't want to be copying anyone, so I did a little search and I found, wouldn't you know it, who made a similar video like this? I did, in fact. I think it was like mid-2020. I did a video about why it's so hard to declutter products, and I rewatched it. I was like, wow, you know, baby YouTuber me. So I will link that here if you want to watch it. I think the production values have improved on my videos, and I also acted a different way. I don't know, I felt more like, obviously when you're speaking to YouTube, you're still like somewhat putting on a performance, but in that video I was more putting on a performance. Side note, when I was explaining something to my partner yesterday, he was like, you're acting the way you do in your YouTube videos, you're like using your arms more. And I'm like, that's just the way I talk, I'm pretty sure. I don't feel like I'm putting on a performance, but of course it is different talking to a camera than it is just like talking to a friend. Anyways, we're getting all over the place here. There was some overlap between ideas in that video and this one, but not really. But I did want to mention that. Copying myself. Okay, the next one, you've probably heard of the fantasy self. What this means is you have this idea of yourself. It is your ideal version of yourself, some future version of you, and you think that one day you will become that person. Spoiler, you won't. You may become slightly more like that person, but you're not going to become that person. You imagine yourself in the future using those makeup products or wearing those clothes or using those kitchen implements that you never use because realistically you never bake, and you think you need to hang on to those things because one day you will become that fantasy self. It's the idea that just because you haven't figured out a way to incorporate that eyeshadow palette into your life yet, doesn't mean you won't be able to one day. Yeah, you've got tons of dark lipsticks, and no, you never wear dark lipstick in real life, but one day you're gonna become that person who rocks a badass purple lip. This is personal. I have so many dark lipsticks that I never use that I created an entire lipstick project pan just because of this. I will link that here. I needed to become my fantasy self even just for YouTube videos. And I will say I am not wearing dark lipstick out of the house any more than I used to. My tendency is still to go for like a nude or a light pink neutral lip, but I am wearing those things at home. Today, it's a bit of a mix. I'm wearing a dark lip liner with a nude lipstick. This is sort of an in-between. I don't think I'm ever going to become that fantasy self, but I can't just declutter all of those dark lip products because I might. I just don't know. We just haven't got to that future version of me yet. You just think that that version of you is right around the corner, even though you haven't achieved her yet. One day, you will be able to pull off the clean girl look or the cool, like, Aritzia outfit vibe. You know, you never wear mini skirts, but you're keeping that one in your closet because one day you're gonna have the confidence. I'm not gonna try to make excuses for this. I think we just need to understand that we have this idea of ourselves, and that is the reason why we can't declutter products. I'm not saying, you know, don't have this idea of a fantasy self or don't save products in case you become that person. I'm just explaining that this is a factor to consider. Another reason why we find it so hard to declutter products, I am hoping that if you have a collection the size that I do, you will have realized this about yourself, that we are all hoarders to one degree or another. I don't mean this lightly. I know that hoarding can be an addiction. You know, we've all seen those pictures of those TV shows about hoarders. and it can definitely get to an unhealthy level. So I'm not suggesting that everyone who has a huge makeup collection is a hoarder. But to some extent, when we have these massive makeup collections, when we have 40 plus lip products and we don't wear lip products that much, we can't declutter them because we just want to hold on to those products even if we don't use them. We get this hoarding mentality about our products. I definitely used to be worse about this than I am now. At the height of my collection, I probably had, I actually don't even know, like 225 makeup products. At one point I had over 40 mascaras. I have had over 60 lip products. My numbers are still really up there. I still have 20 something mascaras. I still have around 40 lip products. And so I still have a bit of this hoarding mentality when it comes to makeup, but it is a lot better, and I have become better at recognizing which products I truly will never reach for and which products I just need a little bit of a boost, a little bit of motivation to use them. That's where project panning comes in, lipstick project panning, where I actually need to give myself a push to use those products, and then one day I will be able to use them up. It's just sort of a question of motivating myself to do so. And this problem, I don't think you can fix it fully, but I think you can improve it. So I think I'm always going to have a big makeup collection that is just me. And I know that big is a subjective word. To some people, owning 30 makeup products is big and unnecessary. To other people, unless you have an entire room for your makeup collection, you don't have that big of a collection. You know, right now I'm sitting at somewhere around 135, 140 makeup products, I believe. To me, that still feels big, but obviously not as big as it once was. But I'm never going to have a small makeup collection. I am always going to have a little bit of a hoarding mentality. I think this isn't all an individual issue, right? This is a consumer problem that has been placed on us by the larger powers that be, marketing, capitalism, you know, corporations that are pushing us to always buy more and buy better and buy bigger, to constantly be buying. And it also goes back to the thing about how makeup products are expensive. You know, we hoard these products because we spent money on them, and it's hard to get rid of them because of that guilt we feel. Like, all of these issues are tied up in one another. And maybe you have a huge makeup collection, but you don't feel like you're a hoarder. Or maybe you have a tiny minimal makeup collection, but you still recognize those hoarding tendencies in yourself. And that is exactly why you have curated down such a tiny makeup collection, because having bigger than that just triggers your hoarding tendencies. Again, it's a spectrum. I think we're all somewhere on this spectrum of makeup hoarding. But that being said, I think that the beauty community and the YouTube beauty community has encouraged this in all of us. And it's always important to keep in mind that the people who we see on YouTube who have this as their job, their makeup collections are not normal. They are not aspirational, and we should not be comparing our collections to them. People who have entire drawers and drawers of lipsticks because they try out every single new lipstick that comes onto the market because that's their job, they're a YouTuber or a makeup artist. You shouldn't be comparing your collection to them. You should be comparing your collection to the number of products that you can realistically use and enjoy. This next reason, maybe it could be specific to me and my experiences. I just don't often hear it verbalized, but this specifically applies to products that you own that you've not yet used. I get decluttered quite a few products. Actually, not so much this year. 2025 has been good. We are mid-March, and I have not been given any decluttered products. But this is an issue for me where people pass on their products to me. And with a lot of products, I can't say no. And especially when these products are brand new, never been used, I obviously want to accept them. But then what happens is it's never been used, and I look at it and I'm considering, like, does it really make sense to keep this? Would I use it? Is it a shade I like? Have I heard good things about the formula? Do I know this brand? And if the answer to all those things is, no, I actually don't think that I would enjoy it, And if I hadn't been decluttered this, I never would have bought it outright. When you think through those things, it might become obvious that you should declutter that product to someone else. Or maybe this is not even a product that has been decluttered to you. Maybe this is a product that you bought yourself 2 years ago. I don't know, like a single eyeshadow or something you've just never reached for. And you realize 2 years in, I own this product, I've never used it. Maybe there's a reason for that, and maybe I should not keep it anymore. But you want to try it. You want to know if you would like it. And in all probability, you are not going to like it. But what if you do? It's because of that what if that you want to try it out just that once. But of course, once you try it out just that once, it immediately loses quite a bit of the value, and fewer people would be willing to accept it or purchase it, even if you're posting it on some place like Vinted or Poshmark. But you can't bear the thought of passing it on without finding out for yourself if you like it. I'll give the example of this. My friend passed this on to me just less than a year ago. It is an Hourglass lippy. Now, I have only ever tried one other Hourglass product and I don't love it. I have the blush palette. Of course, you can like some products from brand and not other ones, but this one, just based on the shade and the type of product it really was not calling to me. This is a lipstick. I don't wear coral lips very much. I love an orange on the eye and on the cheeks, but not on the lips. And over time, I used to own a lot more orange lipsticks, but I ended up either decluttering or panning most of them. Probably decluttering. I don't know that I panned that many of them because I just didn't find that the shade suited me anymore. Maybe it never did. And because this was completely brand new, I could have easily passed it on to someone else or traded it on Buns or Carrot, but there was just a little part of me that thought, but you might like it. Like, it's such a nice looking formula. It looks so creamy. It's high end, such pretty packaging. You might like it. And so I tried it that one time, and sure enough, I didn't like it. I didn't think it looked good on my lips, and I knew that it was not a product that I would reach for ever. Now, I have since categorized this as a blush. I love it as a blush. It looks beautiful by itself or underneath a powder blush. So I ended up being glad that I kept it because I just wanted to try it. But it's so challenging because there's no option of trying out a product just once. You can't just try it out and then pass it along. You either keep it or you don't. And if you don't, you can't try it out yourself. I've seen my partner deal with this, but not with makeup, with like food items. He will often buy something that looks like fun and exciting that he's never tried before. And if I'm there, I'm like, you're never gonna use that. Like, you're just never gonna use it. Or you're gonna use a little bit of it and then the rest of it is just going to go to waste, or I'm going to be bugging you to use it and you're going to be like, I don't want to use it. And I'm like, then why did you buy it in the first place? We do a lot of our grocery shopping at a nearby Chinese grocery store, and they have stuff that's very different from like the Western market. They have a lot of Japanese options, a lot of Chinese, and a lot of Korean foods. And they've got so many teas. And a few weeks ago, he wanted to get this Japanese green tea. We have green tea, but this one, it was like tea leaves. It looked nice. And I'm thinking like, okay, sure, buy it. But like, you're never going to reach for that. Like, I just know, like, you don't drink green tea. We have green tea. You never drink it. You just want this like to try it out because it's going to be fun. But tea is not a thing that you can just like try it out. Like, you can't get like a sample size of it, you know? It was like this massive thing. And so of course I've been drinking it because I knew that was what was going to end up happening. And he has not been. This is not like a big complaint fest. Like, I do this, he does this. It's just normal, I think. And even if I know he's not going to use something, I'm not going to stop him from getting it. Even if he knows that I'm not going to use something, he's not going to stop me from getting it. But I think it kind of reframed in my mind that this issue with the wanting to buy to try is not specific just to makeup. This can be the case with a variety of consumables. I think Shauna coined that. She used to talk about buying to try, like buying a product because you wanted to try it out, but you didn't actually want to keep or pan that product. You just wanted to see how it looked on you just once. It's more so about the potential of the product if it is a new product. This next reason is more environmental, and it applies to myself, perhaps not everyone. For me, the reason that I think panning is the better option is because then I know it will fully get used up and I will be able to recycle the packaging. And so none of that will feel like waste to me. However, if I'm decluttering it to someone, even if I'm decluttering it to a friend and not just like posting it on Facebook Buy Nothing or on Buns or something, I don't know if that person is going to end up using the product. They, like me, might just want to buy to try. They might accept it because they have never tried something like that before, but they might discover that they don't actually like it, and then they'll throw it out. Like, I have good consumer habits. If I have a full product that has expired, for example, I'm going to throw out the product itself in the garbage, but then I'm going to recycle the packaging and make sure that it is fully cleaned out. But that other person, whether it's a friend or some random person who accepted it from Facebook Buy Nothing group, they might not do that. They might just try it, not like it, throw it into the garbage. I just don't know if my products are going to end up going directly into the trash if I pass them on to someone else. So yes, decluttering might seem like, oh, it's a great option. It's sustainable because then even though you didn't use it up, someone else is using it up, but we just don't know if that actually is going to be the case. And sure, you can ask your friend, hey, did you end up using that product? But like, are we going to police their usage of everything they decluttered? Like, if I'm decluttering 10 to 15 makeup products a year to friends, am I going to follow up with each of those friends who accepted those products and be like, give me the rundown of what happened with the product? I want to make sure that you used it appropriately. You know, it's just not realistic. So I think for myself, there is a resistance to decluttering because I want to make sure that the product ends up in the right place, environmental wise. Another reason is purely logistical. Decluttering your makeup collection, especially if it is the first time you have done any major kind of declutter, can be overwhelming because of the sheer amount of products. Where do you start? Now, I'm thinking right now of someone I watch on TikTok whose name is Abby. I don't know what her last name is, but she is Welsh, I believe. She has quite an accent, at least to myself as a Canadian. She has been documenting her no-buy journey for over a year now, and she has a much larger collection than I ever had. She owned, when she started this decluttering journey, 400 blush. Now, I never owned 400 products, even at the peak of my makeup addiction, right? So I cannot even imagine owning 400 of one type of product. Like, that is sheer, it's hard for me, and I think for most people, to believe how that is even possible. Like, that one is able to spend that amount of money and even has that amount of space to house all of those products, right? So I can see how for her, starting the process of dealing with that amount of product would be absolutely overwhelming. I mean, I even felt that way with my lipstick collection. That's why I started doing lipstick project pans, because I just had no idea how to get down the overall number of lip products in my collection without having a concentrated effort on it. Because sure, I do project pans, and through that I finish, let's say 10 to 15 products a year, but I wanted to get out like 5 to 10 lip products per year, and I can't have my project pan completely overwhelmed by lip products. I needed to have a focused, concentrated effort just on lip products, and so that is why I have been focusing so much on that section of my collection. But even that being said, at its height, I had like 60 lip products. How many lip products does she have in total? I don't know. I would guess 200, but I don't know if she's ever explicitly stated. So in that case, it's like when you know you have to like clear out your closet or do some like deep cleaning. It's like, oh damn, like where do I even begin? Sure, like a little spot cleaning, no problem. We'll do a vacuum, we'll clean the washroom, but like deep cleaning as in like taking everything out of the closet and like scrubbing the floors, that kind of deep clean is just overwhelming because of how much is involved, how much effort. And even though this is a long process, I think it's important to keep in mind that we don't need to do it all at once. So if you have a massive collection like Abby, you don't need to declutter the whole collection within one day or even within 1 year. It's just important to start that journey. It's important to start project planning or start decluttering one makeup product a month or whatever it is. You don't need to feel like you need to declutter 100 makeup products, right? Like the decluttering process does not have to be huge and overwhelming. It can be small. It can be simple. That being said, if you have a ton of products, yeah, it's probably gonna take a long time, and that part can also feel overwhelming. So, slow and steady is fine. Because it's so big, it can be hard to even picture what to do with it. Like, even if you get beyond the idea of decluttering and you do manage to declutter some of those products, it's like, okay, if you have a massive collection and you've ended up decluttering collective like 50 blushes, how are you gonna get rid of 50 blushes? Are you going to post them all on Facebook Marketplace? Are you going to have a big party where you host your friends and you put them all on a table and say, go wild, take whatever you want? Like, that can feel like a lot. I think the best way to do it is to have like a slow, systematic approach so that you can implement your lifestyle changes along with the declutter. So you don't want to be decluttering products, but then also buying new products. You want to be stopping bringing anything new in the door. You want to be panning the products that you have and you love, while also getting rid of those products that you do not. And this way, I think it's more likely to have habits that will stick if you make it slow and systematic rather than just like all at once doing everything. You're not going to get any habits going that way. And also, if you just do one massive declutter and that's the only thing that you change about your collection, that is just going to be a band-aid solution. You're just getting your collection smaller, but you're not actually fixing the issue. The issue is you buying so many products, and that might still continue. Like, what is the reason that you bought so many products in the first place? You want to heal that issue as well as dealing with the symptoms of the problem. Like those people, I never watch them, but those people who post those massive declutters on YouTube. Sometimes they're shorts, sometimes they're videos, but you just see the thumbnail and it's like their entire floor of a room is just filled with products and they're like, massive declutter. Like, do they end up with small makeup collections long term? Not even small, like minimal or curated makeup collections? Or are they just doing that one day and then they will continue buying just as much makeup and getting just as much PR, and they're just going to have to do declutters like that once a year? By contrast, my collection has gotten smaller and actually stayed that way because of the habits that I have implemented. So all this to say, do not let your massive makeup collection overwhelm you, okay? Just commit to minute long-term changes. Sure, it'll take a long time to get there. I started this journey in 2019 and I'm still not at my ideal makeup collection numbers or size or even like overall look, but that's okay because I knew it was going to be a long-term process and I have found the journey to actually be very satisfying. And if you want proof of this, then just watch my last video where I talked about this same topic, where I talked about why it's so hard to declutter. And you will see just how much larger of a collection I had in 2020. I think at one point I show all of my like backups, like all of these new products that are still in packaging that I hadn't used yet. You will see how much of a difference 5 years can make because of this slow, systematic approach. So I recommend you do the same. And also, like, just to be clear, right now is not the end point. As I mentioned, I'm still on this journey. I have not reached my goal, and I don't know that there is an actual end point. Even when I get to the number of products that I think is like the ideal size of makeup collection for myself, which is 125, I'm still going to keep creating makeup goals. I'm still going to be doing projects that allow me to fully use my collection, that allow me to figure out which products I need to declutter and which products I need to pan, because that is just the kind of person that I have become. These are the habits that I have in place. And also 125 makeup products is still a lot of makeup products, and I'm still going to have to work to get use out of my whole collection. I know sometimes it's easier to deal with problems that have an end goal, like, you want to get an A on a test, or you want to work out 3 times a week. Those things are achievable because you can see, oh, I got an A this week. I went to the gym 4 times this week. A little checkbox on those numbers. But what is the end goal with decluttering? This is not something I can answer for you. You will have to answer for yourself. But keep in mind that there might not be an end goal, and you might have to be okay with that. Again, I do have an end goal, 125 makeup products, and maybe that is what has allowed me to stick to it for so long, because I still have not hit that number. Maybe after that point, when I do hit that number, I will find it a lot harder to like create goals or stick to the makeup no buy, because I'm not working towards a specific goal. But then I'll just set new goals, you know? But maybe that is why I have been able to stick to it. And maybe you should set a number of makeup products to have in your collection to work towards, just so that you do have that goal. And maybe decluttering is hard because we feel like there is a finish line, but we never hit it, so we're disappointed. Let's say Abby set a goal for herself to declutter 100 makeup products this year, and she hit that, right? So she got 100, even blush specifically. Let's say she decluttered 100 makeup products from her collection, and so she ended up with 300 makeup collections. So she hit the goal, but she still doesn't feel like she achieved her end goal because she still has 300 makeup products. Or maybe she's not even able to declutter that many products, and so she's disappointed. You may feel like you're constantly decluttering. You're constantly trying to get your collection smaller, which I am. Like, I'm literally always thinking about the products that I own and if I'm enjoying them and if they should leave. That's why I started a new eyeshadow roulette this year, even though I already have a blush roulette project, because I want to get full use out of my eyeshadows and out of all of my things. I constantly feel like I'm decluttering, and yet I'm still not hitting those goals. But I am still decluttering. Even if last year I didn't hit my overall goal number of products, which was 140, I ended the year with like 144 products. That doesn't mean that I completely failed. I was still sticking to a low buy all year. I was still decluttering and being very conscious with my collection usage and my collection curation all year. The reason that my collection ended up higher than I wanted it to was because I was bringing in new stuff. So I was still succeeding at decluttering, but I was bringing in new things. So that's still somewhat succeeding at the goal. I think I would just be so proud of where I am now if I took a look, 5 years ago, but I'm still not at the end goal. For example, we got our walls repainted recently, which was sorely needed, but in order to do that, you obviously need to move everything, right? So we need to move our bed away from the wall. In the living room, we had to move everything away from the walls. Even the inside of the closet was repainted, so we had to take everything out of the closet. And it's only when you move things around in your space that you realize how much stuff you have. It just always feels like too much. I think it is always going to feel like too much. Even if I become a complete minimalist, I think you still always feel like you have too much stuff, because that is just the world we're in. We all own way too much stuff. This was not supposed to be a big statement, but that's where we ended up. But I don't want us to be let down by how much we have. We shouldn't just be thinking about the things that we own. We should also be thinking of the ways that we succeeded in getting out the things we no longer own. So I want to congratulate myself on all the products that I have decluttered recently. Even though I still have a very large makeup collection, that doesn't mean that I haven't decluttered it and I haven't been curating it. So don't let how challenging this all feels stop you from persevering in your decluttering and makeup low buy, makeup curation journey. So that is it. That is everything that I have to say today. This ended up being quite a bit longer than I anticipated, but I still do want to talk about a book that I have been reading lately. And it does kind of tie in, actually. Before I talk about this book, I do want to give a trigger warning. If you have struggled with eating, or if you're not in a great place with food, or have any experience with eating disorders personally, or that is triggering to you, then please leave the video now. That is what this book is about. It is a memoir, so it is very real. So I recently read The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting by Ivana Lynch. This has been a banger year for books, I will say. I'm finally getting through all the books that I had put off reading for so long, and it's so funny because somehow all of these books turned out to be excellent. Like, these were at the very, very bottom of my library holds. And yeah, this is a 5-star book, another one. You may know Ivana Lynch as the actor who portrayed Luna Lovegood in the Harry Potter series. I have been following her since then. I mean, I've always been a huge Harry Potter fan, although I do always need to say I do not support J.K. Rowling. She is a trans exclusionary radical feminist, and we do not ship her here. But anyways, Ivana has become, she's still an actor, she's a writer, she's also an activist. She mostly does work around animal rights, and she had a podcast for many years that I loved called The Chick Peeps, and she really helped me on my journey to becoming vegan. I've been vegan for, has it been my 6th year anniversary happened recently. Anyways, yeah, I think she is incredible, and this book blew me away. Like, I had not heard anything about it. The only reason that it was on my radar was because I follow her on social media, but like, I haven't heard this hyped anywhere. This is not big, and I don't know why, because this is such a good memoir. Maybe it's because it's about such tough subject matter. She is so vulnerable, so open and emotional, and the reason I said that this kind of relates to the decluttering makeup thing is because I think for a lot of us who end up with massive makeup collections and somewhat unhealthy relationships to consumer habits and to buying makeup, it stems from a deeper problem. You know, this is more discussed today, I think, but we acknowledge that it's more known that if you have a shopping addiction, if you're spending like a huge amount of money on clothing or makeup, you might be doing that because you have some like insecurity issues, or you have some deeper problems that you're just trying to like cover up. The shopping problems are just a symptom of the bigger issue. And I saw comparisons in this book because she makes it very clear that her eating disorder, yes, of course, that is a huge problem that affected her physically and mentally, but her eating disorder came about because of deeper problems. The eating disorder was just the symptom. Her not eating was a symptom of deeper problems with her. You know, she was depressed, she was having a lot of mental challenges, and how that played out was her restricting her eating. So she talks about her childhood and her experience struggling with her eating disorder, and how basically the one thing that helped her was the Harry Potter series. And she is actually, like, the story of how she got the role of Luna is actually remarkable, and it makes me think that fate is real. I don't know if I believe in fate, but like the fact that she got the role of Luna is absolutely remarkable. This was also so well written. Like, she said that she's continuing writing. She's going to write other books and probably fiction, and I'm going to read them, not just because I like her as a person, but because she is such a good writer. I was very surprised. Let me read you some of the quotes in this book. So, eating disorders are coping mechanisms. She talks a lot about that. There are things that eating disorders take from you that are more important, much greater and more profound a loss, and much more difficult to recover and restore completely than body fat. And that reckless urge to create just for the pure senseless joy of it would become the one I missed most. She also talks about how doctors, I mean, this was a little while ago, it was like early 2000s, so I don't know how treatment is done now, but the treatment she receives in this book was pretty horrible universally, and doctors did not seem to understand that there were deeper issues going on than the disorder. And she says, I'm not saying that any of these doctors or therapists were negligent or incompetent, but I am suggesting that the medical system got it wrong in their methods of treating the superficial symptoms of starvation to heal the eating disorder, and I'm not sure their approach has evolved much since. I'm saying they were asking all the wrong questions. So if you don't feel like this would be triggering to you, I highly recommend it. Just so emotional. Like, I was actually alternating between tears, like full on crying, and laughing out loud. And I think if you have that emotional attachment to Ivana Lynch, you will feel more strongly about it in the way that I did. But I really enjoyed this. I read both this and Alan Rickman's memoir within the past few months, and I'm like, wow, I should just, yeah. These Harry Potter memoirs, they're so good. But I loved it. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you next week.